Hey, welcome to the Watchmen's Post. This is our first episode. We're excited to be with you all. Thanks for joining us. This is our first episode, like I said, so we're going to be, figuring out as we go how we want to do this, how the setup's going to be. Right now, I have all my notes on my laptop, so as you see it on my lap. It might stay like that for a while, or maybe we'll change it up a little bit. But for now, this is kind of how we're going to do things. With me in second chair is Cade. He's our producer extraordinaire. He does all the magic behind the scenes, so we're very grateful for him and all that he does. He does it for this show. He does it for the sports show, The Amateurs. That's a part of the Watchmen Media Group. And whatever other shows we decide to do, he's going to be the main one doing that. So thank you, Cade, for all your work, and thanks for joining me.
Yeah, super excited to step into chair number 2 for this. I'm not sure how long that'll last for us. Our goal is to have, a bunch of guests and people that are of interest to you guys. Obviously, the show's for them more than it is for us. So tell us who you want to sit here, to sit in the third chair. We can have as many people as we can fit in my basement in on this, and really excited about this opportunity.
Yeah, so with that said, we're going to get right into it. I'm going to try to keep this one as short as possible. If any of you are coming over here from the Talk Shack, you know that I can be very long-winded. So I have bullet points here that I'm going to try to work through and try to keep this under 2 hours for you. So this episode is we're going to be covering what are the top 10 things that Trump has done so far. He's done a lot. He's done more in his first, month than any president in recent memory, and it's honestly kind of insane. So I kind of went through and was looking at things and jotted down what I think are the 10, most important, maybe not most important, but 10 most controversial or 10 big things that he's done. They're not in any order. So they're just kind of as they came to mind. I threw them down here. So we're just going to jump right in. And number 1 being he reimposed, or I guess he didn't reimpose, but he imposed tariffs on Canada and Mexico. That's, being talked about all day today. If you follow social media, everyone's whining or complaining or praising Trump's decision to do this. Canada's saying they're not gonna, vacation in Florida anymore. Whatever, who cares? So a couple pros and cons, and as we go through this list, we're going to have some pros and cons to each one, and then, a little bit of discussion. Some of these I'm going to briefly touch on because they're going to have their own designated episode. Obviously, we're going to talk about Ukraine a little bit, but that's going to have its own episode later on. So some of these we're not going to spend as much time on, but most likely they're going to have their own episode later. Here I am being long-winded again. Okay. So what benefits do we get from these tariffs on Canada and Mexico? Number 1, and most importantly, we're protecting our domestic industries. That's something that America has lost the last 50 years. We've seen major companies, leave our country to establish plants, facilities, manufacturing plants, out of the U.S. All that does is hurt the U.S. economy. So by Trump doing this, it's going to, ultimately force a lot of these companies to come back. And if you saw Apple, they're coming back. I think it's like a $500 billion plant that they were going to plant in Mexico, but now they're planting it in the U.S. because of some of these tariffs that Trump's doing. So these are wins. So what would Trump's goal be? He aims to shield U.S. manufacturers from foreign competition, and potentially and most likely it's going to be preserving American jobs rather than outsourcing these jobs to other countries. It's going to keep them stateside, which is good. We need that. And maybe the second point's the most important thing: trade negotiation leverage. This is now providing the U.S. bargaining power to renegotiate some of these horrible trades that we've allowed to go on for the last, like I said, 50 or maybe more so 20 years. And so, we're able to have more cards in our deck, basically, to, make some of these agreements more favorable to our own American interests. So it's an America First policy, and I'm all for it. and Americans should be too. Do you have any thoughts on that, or do you want me to keep rolling to the cons of this? Potential cons, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, overall, this is, I think, going to help us from an economy standpoint. There's going to be, and you'll touch on this, I'm sure, in the cons, but there's going to be an initial backlash. There's going to be a lot of people on social media as well, saying this is a terrible move, and the United States is doomed and whatnot. But I think overall here, time will tell if this is a good move or not. Whether it is or not, time will surely tell.
Yeah, exactly. And so we'll move right into some potential cons. The first and foremost being economic retaliation. Right away, we're going to see Canada and Mexico. They're already imposing counter tariffs. Yeah. So this is going to affect American exports, and it's going to escalate trade tensions. I mean, people are throwing around trade wars. The trade wars have begun.
Okay, Viceroy.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like a potential issue. But again, I didn't look into this too much, but I think our Canada imports make up like around 4% of our total GDP every year. So it's like, bring it on, whatever. That's not going to affect us at all. So it gives us more power in the long run, and that's what we want to see. Like Cade touched on, the consumers might feel a little bit of an increase in costs. Any imported good probably coming out of those countries that Trump decides to tariff, we're probably going to see higher costs, unfortunately, which could burden consumers and businesses really, ultimately. Parts, whatever consumer goods that these businesses are bringing in from other countries, that we could potentially see, and we will see actually higher costs on those things, which could hurt a little bit. And because of that, we could see some economic slowdown. All the experts, if you get on like Yahoo Finance or whatever, like I don't even know how much I trust these things because they've been so politically biased the last couple years. But obviously experts are warning of potential job losses, slower economic growth due to, disrupted trade relations. So potentially a rocky start. But the thing with tariffs is you have to look past the initial kind of humps that we might face. Long term, though, I think the tariffs are a great thing. One of his main running points back when he first ran, and his current, administration, is bringing U.S. jobs back to this country. And if that happens, we're good.
Yeah.
The tariffs worked. Yeah. That's his goal.
I think the only way that this fails is if Americans don't see that come back. We don't see jobs return. Yep. We don't see exports start to go up. That's really where this is going to fall apart if that does not take place. But if you see that with Apple, you're going to see that trend start to take place with multiple other countries and companies, and hopefully that kind of takes over and becomes the trend back into the golden age of American industry.
There was another company that's making a major investment. I can't remember. I'm going to actually look this up. But Apple was the big one, $500 billion plant they were going to put in Mexico is now in the U.S. or is now going to be in the U.S., which is huge.
Yeah, they there's a huge potential upside to this, and I think ultimately his goal is to reduce taxes. But you've got to have money coming in from somewhere. It's either going to come from the American people in terms of tax money, or you're going to get it from tariffs and from trade and those things. And that really becomes ideal for the American taxpayer at the end of the day. It's difficult to see that in the immediate, because what we're going to see is the price of things start to go up in the grocery store. But at the end of the day, you'll start to see that trend, I think, come back. And I think he proved it in his first term more than anything. He showed that there's an American economy there that can be good and booming. And he did that the first time. And now there's nothing really holding him back from doing that this time.
Yeah, he gave us he flirted with it a little bit, gave us a taste, and he's going balls to the wall this second time around. It's crazy. The other one I was thinking of was the TSMC company, which is the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. They're investing $100 billion into 5 new factories in the U.S., which marks the largest largest foreign country investment in U.S. history, actually. So that's going to really put the semiconductor, which is the most crucial aspect to like modern military systems, and the reason China wants Taiwan is because of the semiconductor production. And so for them to invest 5 major plants in the US like that is amazing.
Well, and it's also going to encourage the United States to protect Taiwan in all of this,
Which exactly, that's going to be
strengthen that relationship at the end of the day,
which is going to China's not going to like that. So we'll hopefully I don't forget. My short-term memory is terrible. Hopefully I remember to touch on that when we get to the Ukraine section here.
Yeah.
Because the Pacific region really that'll be its own episode for sure. But there's a bigger plan here. Rather, whatever.
Are they the company that's coming in at State College?
I'm not sure where those
plants are.
That would be cool.
There is a large tech company that's building a giant plant out towards State College, which, for those of you that know us, know that's pretty close to where we're at here. So, but it's exciting to see companies start to reinvest into the United States and bring back jobs to the local economy and kind of pour into these regions of Pennsylvania, for that matter, that have kind of gone by the wayside since the coal boom and the industrial evolution.
Yeah. And so with that said, we'll move on to number 2.
Yeah.
The establishment of Doge. Is it Doggy or Doge?
Yeah.
Well,
I always call it Dodge.
Dodge,
that doesn't, no.
Yeah. So it remains to be seen how effective that Elon's Doge is going to be. But they have added that savings counter to whatever the national. You can Google the U.S. national debt calculator or whatever, and there is now a Doge clock on there too. So we are seeing already some savings, but we'll, in the long run, we'll see how effective that was. I think their end date is 2026. I think is when they're wrapping up. But for now, what have we seen already? A streamline in government operations. Elon's big thing. If you follow him on Twitter, Elon X. Yeah. If you follow him on X, his big thing was to aim, reduce the bureaucracy, make federal agencies more efficient, cost efficient. We waste so much money. I mean, what was it, like $3,000 on per coffee cup or something crazy? I was seeing like it.
Yeah,
crazy.
The amount of things that he's found, I think in and of itself prove why that organization needs to exist.
Yeah.
I'm just interested to see what he does about it.
Yep.
Because I love learning about it and I love hearing about it. But let's do something about it on the back end. And I think they are. And I mean, we're judging this presidency off of 2 months. Like we can wait a little while to make those decisions, but
it feels so much longer than 2 months.
It does, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
But there is a certain level here of like, do something about it now. Okay. We see that this is happening. I mean, if you just look at, the what we're paying out in Social Security to people that are over the age of 150, and for those of you that know, rural culture, there's only like 2 people over the age of 110. So like, why are we paying people? There was somebody on there that was 300 years old that we were paying out Social Security to, when he posted that online. Like there's a certain level here of, your tax money is being stolen and used for nonsense. And so we've brought light to that, and we are continuing to bring light to that. Now let's do something about it. Let's cut that budget. Let's get rid of those federal employees. There's a certain level. Sorry, I don't want to take over here, but
take over.
There's a certain level of government employees during COVID. A lot of them ended up working from home, and I know this is a big deal because there are those employees that work from home that actually do a great job, and you're gonna see some of those employees start to fall off. And we're going to lose the good people too. But there's so many bad that didn't do anything. They just sat at home and collected a paycheck because they were remote workers because of COVID. And they never went back to work. And so there's, even in the federal prison system, there's so much corruption in that. And so if that's a microcosm of the big picture, I really do see the value in Doge and what he's doing. We just got to see what he does about all of the corruption.
Yeah, I mean the biggest the biggest pro is we're targeting wasteful spending, and what does that mean? You cut all this crap out. That's U.S. citizen tax dollars that are being saved. Like that's what we want to see. I don't like my money going to, some of this nonsense.
Yeah.
And the only real con with this is just there's so much changing so fast that like potential legal hurdles that kind of remain to be seen. Like,
yeah,
we don't really know exactly how those are going to play out yet, but that's really the only. Obviously, there's a lot of skepticism regarding the implementation of Doge, but like in the long run,
a lot of lawsuits coming down the pipeline.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah, so we'll see. It remains to be seen how that's going to go. But ultimately, no, I think Doge is great. It's really bringing a lot to light, a lot of the wasteful government spending that we can just stop.
Yeah.
And with that said, we'll move on to number 3. Suspension of military aid to Ukraine. This is controversial. This is going to lose us some follow. Actually, probably not. If you follow our X account, which is kind of where we do a lot of our discussion and breaking news stuff, which yes, we do cover breaking news on X. So if you want, typically we end up posting stuff faster than Fox News, CNN, like a lot of these major media companies. We're beating them by sometimes hours on topics. So follow the Watchmen's post on X if you want quick breaking news topics, and we don't mess around with the bull crap. We keep it straight, keep it simple.
It's actually kind of frustrating as somebody that follows us, seeing all the breaking news break and then 3 hours later getting all of the breaking news again. It's like, I already know about this. What are we doing here? So that piece has been really, really cool. And we've got a great team working, a lot more resources this time around than the original Talk Shack crew.
Mm-hmm.
So very excited to see what that looks like.
Yep. So what are the pros of this? The first and foremost is it's encouraging peace negotiations. That's ultimately the main goal out of this, and Trump's been very vocal about that, and so has Vice President J.D. Vance, and I'm all for it. What does it do? It is pressuring Ukraine to engage in these peace talks with Russia, to resolve this conflict that's been ongoing for years now, unnecessarily. This could have been ended 2 years ago. But, we continued to funnel all this money and all of our munition stockpiles, which now have us depleted. So if China does decide to move to, and again, I'm getting ahead of myself. I wasn't going to talk too much about this. This will be its own episode. So we're not going to spend too much time on Ukraine. But, Trump's really twisting Zelensky's arm to sit down and seriously have these conversations, which if you follow the Watchmen's post, you would have saw that Zelensky, after that whole meeting with Trump went viral, he's coming back now and saying, okay, I'm ready to sign the deal. So, it's working. And this is strong American leadership is what we needed from the get-go. And Biden was too busy taking his naps, eating his ice cream on the beach. Like, maybe this will be another episode. Who the heck was running the country for the last 4 years?
Oh, I've got my theories on that one.
We're gonna have an episode dedicated to who the heck ran the country during Biden's presidency.
Yeah, Biden didn't even know what Biden was doing was the problem. He thought he was helping people, but ultimately he had no idea. I think half of the things that he signed, he had no idea what it was.
Oh yeah.
So that'll be some in-depth analysis we'll have to go into for that one.
Yeah. And then another, crucial aspect to this is we're decreasing federal spending on military foreign aid. What does that do? That allows us to reallocate a lot of those resources here domestically. That's the more we can allocate these resources domestically, that only helps our country succeed. And again, that allows us to help our allies properly. And so just wasting all this money, sending all this stuff to Ukraine to get nowhere, it's just, I don't know. People are so angry about this, but it doesn't make sense to me. Like I I cannot honestly steel man the other side. I genuinely have no idea why this would be a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know, how many times did like I don't know how. I don't know if Biden. I have to check on this, so don't quote me on this. But I don't think Biden had a single phone call with Putin over the course of this conflict. I can't think of a time off the top of my head.
I think he did, if I remember correctly. But at the end of the day, Putin kind of looked at him like, this guy's...
You're a joke.
Yeah, pretty much.
He respects Trump, which is what we want. It is Russia is a nuclear superpower. And I'm sorry, this is going to offend people. I would rather have good relations with a nuclear superpower than some corrupt country that has a male stripper that plays the piano with his penis. You know? That's
Yeah.
that's just me, okay, but you know, that's my thought. So, there's not much to go off that, I guess.
Well, no, I truly believe that the reason we funded that war and we funded, Zelensky is because there was a deeper conspiracy with the Biden family in that country. If this was Trump, this would have never happened. I don't even think he would have invaded from the start. But had he, there would have been a much quicker resolve to all of this than what we ended up getting. Lives were lost, money was lost, Lord knows that, and at the end of the day, this was a pointless conflict that didn't need to happen. And so I'm glad to see that we're taking step towards peace, because at the end of the day, that's what we're really all looking for. We need peace. Let everything fall where it may, but at the end of the day, we want this to be done. And that's what our side is looking for in all of this.
Yep. And so, like I said, I have more on that actually, but I'm going to save it because we're going to do a dedicated episode just to the war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And we're going to cover from 2014 up until the present day. So that's going to be a whole episode in and of itself, because there is, like Cade mentioned, a ton of corruption around that entire conflict and prior to the conflict, actually. And so we're going to move on here to number 4. Trump has threatened to withdraw federal funding from universities, allowing illegal protests. Now, this is kind of flown by the wayside to some people, but I actually think it's a good thing. Number 1, it's going to maintain order on campuses. You know, all throughout COVID and the whole BLM stuff and the transgender men and women's sports thing, like, we've just seen videos going viral, campus after campus, of these just insane, like, insurrections almost at these campuses, blockading certain students in sections of the school because there's riots going on, like, where their lives, like, the one, it was a girl, oh, I wish I could remember her name, but her life was threatened. And so she was hiding in this little office of this college campus because rioters were just breaking glass, throwing, like, insane. That does not need to be happening at a college campus. So if this is going to maintain order, I'm all for it. And again, just adding to that, upholding legal standards, like, I don't know. It's just the world has gotten so crazy in the last couple years that, that's one of the reasons why we started this show, is just like, how do we make sense of a lot of this craziness that's going on, and to view it from a Christian, like, how does a Christian perspective fit in some of this insane, policy and just cultural divide that we have? Like, that's the main goal of this show is to really just bring to light and just help our viewers kind of make sense of what the heck is going on, because it's a nut case right now. And that's, I mean, some people are saying that they're concerned about the excessive federal intervention in educational affairs. I don't care. It's been too long where campuses have been corrupted and just overrun by these crazy psychopaths that at some point you just need to say enough is enough, and Trump's doing that, and I'm all for it. So
yeah, I think there's intervention on the other side of that too, and there's been a lot of intervention over a lot of years. I don't have too much to add to this. It's at the end of the day, our universities are one of the most corrupt places, I think, in the United States, and we do not benefit our student bodies in the way that they should. You're paying a lot of money to be there. You should be receiving a much better experience and benefit, and it's just not what it needs to be. So
Exactly. And so moving right along here, we're halfway through. Point number 5. This is also controversial. I have a story. I might share it. We'll see how much time we have. Trump is implementing aspects of Project 2025. That, my friend, is controversial because that was the Democrats' main argument against him. Is, oh, look at this Project 2025. It's all this terrible conservative right-wing Nazi stuff. And Trump was, it honestly makes me laugh. Trump was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah. And here he is actually implementing a lot of it, which if you read it, there's a lot in here. And we're going to break this down a little bit here. There's a lot in here for Christians, conservative Christians, to like. You know, first and foremost, we're advancing conservative policies, you know, and again, this is reflecting Trump and J.D. Vance's commitment to its campaign promises to, you know, do away with a lot of this leftist, liberal, crazy stuff. And so that's a good thing. It also calls for restructuring of federal agencies, which Trump is doing with Doge, and, you know, some of his appointments have been solid picks. You know, we're aligning federal operations with, you know, the current administration's priorities. So no more is it going to be, you know, Trump trying to do his thing and the government is preventing it. Like, that was the biggest hurdle for Trump in his first administration, was like he would try to do something and he had like 5 departments on his side, but then the rest of the government was just blockade after blockade after blockade of corruption, lawsuit, all this nonsense to try to stop him from doing what he's done. So this time the gloves are off, and I'm loving it. And so here at the show, we would identify as, you know, paleo conservative is really kind of the stance that we would take. And I'm going to kind of explain how Project 2025 fits into that view. Number 1, emphasis on national sovereignty. Project 20, and I actually read a lot of Project 2025 today to kind of prepare for this. So it's not fresh in my memory, so excuse me if I'm looking at my notes to, you know, make sure I'm saying the correct things. But Project 2025 focuses on national sovereignty, advocating for policies that are heavily oriented towards America First principles, which Trump ran on. You know, his big thing from being the 46th president and now the 45th to the 47th has been America First. And there's people that don't like that.
Yeah.
There are people that don't like that. I don't understand it. You know, this includes prioritizing our interests at home over these globalist agendas. And, you know, a big part of that is going to be limiting all these foreign entanglements that we've just been stuck in for over 30 years now in some of these things. And so, which again, that in itself is a common, you know, theme and principle behind conservatism.
So before you go on, define to the audience, what is paleoconservatism? Because somebody may not know.
So I'm actually going to get to that. I'm going to go through the rest of these, and then I have kind of like how paleoconservatism differs from like other conservative stances.
Yeah.
And so another thing, which this actually could have been the number 1 point on this, is it limits government overreach. Project 2025 is committed to reducing the size and scope of the federal government. Again, Trump ran on that. J.D. Vance is huge on that, which again aligns with paleoconservative focus on limited government is like a big thing. Like if you listen to Ron Paul and Rand Paul, like some of those old school paleoconservative guys, like they're all about limiting the government, get the government's dirty hands out of our lives as much as possible. And again, that's, you know, I resonate with that. Decentralize the power as much as we can, you know, keep it back to the states, you know, how our country was, you know, supposed to be originally. cut down all the regulatory burdens, reducing federal intervention in local and state matters. Again, nothing wrong with that. And then, I think this is probably the most controversial aspect of this whole thing, but it promotes a cultural conservatism. There's if you read Project 2025, which I recommend you do, like, it's not a bunch of Nazi propaganda. Like, the theme of the entire project, I guess, would be its emphasis on traditional American values, which again ties into paleoconservatism. We need to maintain our cultural identity and these traditional norms that we've held and that have made our country great since the beginning. And we've seen over the last 20, 30 years, 40 years, just kind of we're abandoning what makes America America to bring in all this other stuff. And now, if you ask what is an American, like, that might be an episode in and of itself, because that's a hard question to answer now. Like, there's so much multiculturalism stuff we're trying to bring in and all this, and we've seemed to have lost our American identity. And so yeah, I think we are going to make an episode on what is an American, because if you think about it, that's a hard question to answer nowadays.
Yeah.
It focuses on family values, religious freedoms, particularly the Christian religion. And again, it quotes a lot of the founding fathers a lot and kind of their vision for the country. And as an American, I actually, I'd love to revert back and start embracing our founding fathers rather than tear statues down of them and try to do away with teaching about them in history class and in your high schools and stuff. Like, this is stuff we need to kind of go back to. Fourth point, immigration restriction. Again, Trump's all about the border, and I think we have a section on here later that covers some of the stuff he's done for the border security. And so yeah, paleoconservatism really stresses border security. It's a non-interventionalist. It's more of like a focus on ourselves, help when we need to, but mainly the focus is on our country, and that includes keeping our border secure. And then economic protectionism. And again, this is Trump's motto: bring jobs back to the United States. You can't stress that enough with how important that is, especially when we have, economic and military rivals that we're outsourcing jobs to. So we're boosting their economies while hurting our own. And that's only going to hurt us in the long run. And we're seeing the effects of that now with some of the stuff China and Russia is doing. But yeah, protecting American industries and, giving them a home. And, which again, this echoes paleoconservatism, which, they would rather, their focus is on protecting local industries, and there's a huge emphasis on, promoting domestic and prioritizing domestic labor, which that's a good thing. Where this differs from, you'll see Republicans are kind of split on this. You have some of these neocons. There's neoconservatism, versus paleoconservatism. So, like, neoconservatism is more like, sort of like a populist nationalism sort of thing. It emphasizes like a strong executive leadership type thing where, big government, put your hands on everything, be involved in all these foreign conflicts overseas, and, they really promote military intervention like everywhere. So every Republican and Democrat that you see supporting putting U.S. troops in Ukraine, for example, is a neocon, and they need to be out of office. And so the paleoconservatives say, hey, how about we don't do that? We handle this diplomatically. And, I just personally, that's kind of where I line up. I think that's it aligns more with biblical principles. And, but we have seen, over the last, 50 years, paleoconservatism kind of die off. Pat Buchanan was like a major player. He ran for president back in the 90s, I think. He was like a huge proponent of it. But since him, we've really seen it die off. It's kind of become this whole neocon thing, especially with like the war in Iraq, all that. We might have an episode on that too coming up. Like there's so much stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
But Project 2025 is not all bad. Trump's implementing a lot of it, and he's implementing the best parts of it, I should say. There are some of it in there that I just kind of throw away because it is kind of weird, but, you know, there's a lot in there that's actually, you know, it's solid. If you want to touch on any of that, you can.
All I was gonna say is if you look at that, everything that you highlighted there was something that Trump promised to do while on the campaign trail.
Mm-hmm.
Like none of that was new. None of that was, oh, this is specifically from Project 2025. It's all stuff that he said he was going to do and has done.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of refreshing from politics wise. Like most politicians just say they're going to do something, and then it's like your middle school class president runs and says, I'm going to bring free ice cream to the lunchroom, and then they get into office and realize they don't have power to bring free ice cream into the lunchroom. That's kind of what most politicians do and what we kind of expect at this point. This has become the opposite of that. He's done more in this short amount of time than most presidents do in their entire 4 years, than Biden did in his entire 4 years. So, yeah, I there's nothing in there that he hadn't already talked about and already campaigned on.
Yeah,
So.
Trump's the most paleo-conservative leaning president we've had in a long time, which is probably why so many people like him, actually, from both sides, believe it or not. So it's been refreshing to see. There's a lot of hate. A lot of the neocons don't like Trump, but, we don't really like you either. So moving on to number 6, Trump's committed to restructuring the Department of Education. This is long overdue. What's he trying to do there? He's trying to empower local control. He wants to shift the decision-making to the states and the local communities, allowing tailored education approaches. That's, that we'll get to a potential con of that because I think there is a legit concern there. But ultimately, keeping the federal government out of education is a good thing. I think the whole founding of the Department of Education was a bad idea, and I don't support it. But I will grant that there is a con to getting rid of it that, I will grant is an issue that we might need to address. And like I said, reducing federal oversight, decrease the bureaucracy, and then ultimately a part of, the big Doge push is here is like more efficient use of these resources.
Yeah.
And then the con here being the variability across states, could potentially widen the quality gap in education. Yeah. That is a legit concern. I will grant that. So that is something that will need to be addressed. If, I've seen reports Trump's considering abolishing the Department of Education, but either way, it'll be severely limited in its scope and its reach here. Yeah. And so that, the inconsistent education standards, I do believe that needs to be granted an audience and that needs to be addressed. So I will grant them that. So I'll grant the Democrats that one.
I think with a lot of these things, there's a level of, he's swinging the pendulum back so far the other way. There is going to be some downfalls and some pitfalls to that. But the overall piece of this is it's going to end up, I think, well for us. But you're right. That is a legitimate concern. But overall, I think it's going to free up a lot of states to do a lot of things, and give some more control back to, the states. And I think that's what a lot of his policies and plans will ultimately do, is give control back to the states, which I don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, I agree there. Number 7, his declaration of an energy emergency. What is that going to do? It's going to accelerate our infrastructure development, which is severely lacking.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a facilitation of rapid construction of some of these critical energy products. And it's going to promote energy independence, which Trump is, if you followed his campaign, that's a big thing for him back in 2016 as well as the 2024 campaign. And again, we're going to go into we're going to break down a little bit of China and Russia's strategies and why, the U.S. taking a similar approach is not only a good thing, but it's absolutely necessary. And so just, Trump doing this is the goal is to compete with China and Russia in some of these global energy markets. And so, for example, let's break down China's a little bit here. So China leads the world in solar and wind energy production, investing heavily in green energy to attempt to reduce its reliance on coal. But at the same time, they remain the largest consumer of coal and a major importer of oil and natural gas across the globe. And so China quickly, like I'm telling you, like alarmingly fast, is securing energy deals worldwide, especially in Africa and the Middle East. We follow a lot of foreign policy here on this channel. That's kind of like our bread and butter. We kind of focus on what's going on overseas because that kind of dictates ultimately what policies we should be making here back home. And so, China is just fueling its economic growth by making some of these major deals throughout Africa and especially in the Middle East. Moving on to Russia. Russia doesn't give a crap about green energy. They don't care. They are one of the top oil and gas exporters, particularly to Europe and also, surprisingly, to China. And so, but Russia has been the best at utilizing energy as a geopolitical tool. And so during this Ukraine conflict, for example, and they've done it in others too, they've cut gas supply to Europe to leverage, they've used it as leverage. So that they'll cut the supply to Europe to leverage, during these conflicts. And we've seen that. Germany took a serious hit when Russia decided to cut gas to them. And that's a real problem. And the U.S. cannot get sucked into that. That ties your arms behind your back. You can't do anything when you're so reliant on, economic and military rivals. And now we're seeing this play out literally every day. Because of all these Western sanctions, Russia is strengthening its energy ties with China and India. And so they're forming their own little coalition here. And so how does Trump's policy fit into that? We're going to start increasing U.S. energy exports. More domestic oil and gas production will allow us to compete with Russia in supplying Europe and Asia. We're going to challenge China's green energy dominance. I'm not a huge fan of the whole green, like committing fully to green energy. But if it helps, by focusing on U.S. energy independence, we can help push back on China's dominance in renewables and rare earth minerals, key for, batteries and solar panels and stuff like that. If electric vehicles are going to keep becoming the norm, I think the U.S. should strive to be, the top dog when it comes to that, if that's how the world's moving, which it seems to be. This will counter Russia's influence in Europe, which is a good thing, with more U.S. oil and natural gas, the European markets can replace Russian energy with U.S. energy, and that's only going to boost our economy and help them as well. So it's a win-win for everybody. So this is a good thing. Number 8, and this could have been combined with number 7, but I didn't do it. So he withdrawed from the Paris Climate Accord again. And just like last time, this gives us economic flexibility. This removes obligations that could hinder industrial growth and economic activities within our country. And it gives us sovereignty and policy making. So it allows us to set our own environmental policies without any of these international constraints and, requirements and all this stuff that, we were stuck with in the Paris Climate Accord. So, I don't really have any cons about that. I think that's a good thing.
No, I encourage you to do some research on that. America was royally getting, stuffed in that situation, and really we were the only ones that were following what we said we were going to follow. Everybody else was kind of just like, yeah, we're going to do that, and then never actually did it. So
yeah, the U.S. will do that for us.
Pretty much. So that whole thing was a joke, and there's a reason he pulled out of that. Yeah, there's not too much I think on that one. What's number 9?
Just wrapping. The only real risk potentially is if the U.S. cedes leadership on that. China could be the go-to power for energy partnerships, but again, if the U.S. fills that gap, I don't see that being a legit possibility. But that is potentially if the U.S. if we become too isolationist, China could step up there and kind of fill that gap as we've stepped out. But again, I don't see that happening. I have some more on that here. Again, doesn't really affect Russia all that much. They actually benefit from the U.S. withdrawing because it has no intention of cutting emissions significantly at all. So, like I said, Russia doesn't care. And, while we were in it, we were, pressuring Russia and China, India, and all of Europe really to kind of restrict some of the, we were really pushing the whole green energy crap. So without that, Russia's going to be able to expand oil and gas exports to China, India, and Europe. And like I said, if Trump plays his cards right, we should be able to step into that whole, India's actually kind of like in no man's land when it comes to who they're aligned with. And I really, with all the conflict they have with China, I really don't see a scenario where India decides to side with China over the U.S. if we are willing to work with them. So that's not even a question in my mind. So Iran is, can be an issue in this as well. But like I said, it might hurt us in terms of leveraging environmental sanctions on Iran in the long run. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an economist, so I don't, or whatever you call it. I don't know.
Yeah.
So basically, Trump withdrawing, the goal is to boost U.S. energy production and mainly Trump's big on cutting regulation. And so this is it's going to help actually bolster the U.S. economy in the long run. So I'm cool with it, even if it means we lose global influence in the whole green energy stuff. Whatever.
Yeah.
Number 9, Trump reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy. Why? To reduce illegal border crossings and to enhance border security. It doesn't take much to look around and see how bad the border has been over the last couple years under Joe Biden. And I have some interesting statistics here from Axios, giving them a shout out. They're okay. The number of illegal immigrants crossing the southern border plummeted in February to the lowest level seen in decades, back to 2000.
Wow.
And so in January, according to the CBP statistics, Border Patrol recorded around 29,000 encounters, down from around 47,000 the month prior, which is kind of insane. So yeah, I mean, the border crossings, border encounters have dropped drastically, and that's a signal of Trump's policies working at the southern border. And so we're all about that as paleo conservatives. Border security, enhance it as much as we need to. So Trump, he's done a lot of talking on that, so we don't really need to dive into that too much. But the main, and number 10, and this is something that Cade's going to be able to talk about a lot, as he has, he's got a lot of good thoughts on this. Trump has announced plans to end DEI inclusion and all these practices in federal agencies. Why? To focus on merit-based hiring and promotion.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it today, and when I was writing my show notes for this, I was like, it actually, merit-based hiring promotes equal opportunity, actually ensures equal opportunity better than the whole DEI crap.
Yeah.
Merit-based hiring prioritizes skills, experience, and qualifications rather than your race or your gender or whatever background you might have. And so, this literally guarantees every individual an equal chance to compete for jobs based on your ability to do said job.
Yeah.
That's good. And, adding on, it reduces bias, so it's actually less racist, less sexist, less whatever-ist to promote merit-based hiring. It completely, I don't know. I was like, holy crap. This is
so at the end of the day, this is common sense. I know common sense isn't common anymore, but this is common sense hiring. It's take a look at all the applicants in front of us and who would do the job the best. I certain positions, to me, definitely require that. I think most positions should require that. If I don't want the person flying my plane to, especially with all this plane stuff that's been going on, to be a DEI hire over somebody that should have been hired based off of merit. I want the old gruff retired Air Force guy to be flying my plane, not some kid that was hired just because
some kid with a man bun.
Yeah, I've got a man bun. But it's just some kid that was hired based off of the color of their skin. You go back to I know you're not the biggest fan of Martin Luther King, but
he was a communist.
Go back to the idea though of hiring somebody based on the content of their character and the content of their skills. In this case, not on the color of their skin. That's really what this is, and that's what we should be getting back to. Hiring is a difficult thing. Believe me, I know. And you've got to weed through a lot of different applicants for whatever position that you're posting. I get that. But at the end of the day, I want to hire the person that's most qualified and that's going to have my back. I don't want to. You think of the military. You don't want to hire somebody for a position that you wouldn't, as the recruiter, be able to trust in the line of combat. Just because they meet a quota for the color of their skin or the gender in which they identify as,
or how many pronouns they have in their bio.
You've created a culture of victimhood, and you've created a culture of this idea that I need to have wear my scars as badges, almost wear my all of these things, that the identity culture of this wokeism that we're using and infiltrating into the way we hire people. You can hire somebody, you get special points because you're you have these quote unquote social disabilities, and that's not really what this should be. This should be hiring somebody that's based purely on merit and the ability to do the job. It just makes sense at the end of the day, and that's kind of exciting to see. And I hope more companies start to do it. You're actually starting to see this.
Mm-hmm.
Walmart dropped their DEI quota or their program. Basically said it didn't work.
Yeah.
And so there's other companies that are starting to head down this path towards just hiring the right person for the job.
I think Costco's the only one that's stood firm on keeping their DEI stuff around.
I don't know. I just, it's at the end of the day, you should get the job based off of the fact that you earned the job, not based off of the fact that you've got a certain color or a certain number of pronouns in your bio.
Because you're a he, she.
Yeah. And this has been going on for a long time. Don't let people fool you. Don't let the conservative media fool you that this is something that, just the Joe Biden era has, really pushed. This is something that's been going on since the 80s. I've known individuals that, keep names out of it, but I've known individuals that were, in certain areas of law enforcement or government that were passed over for positions based purely on the skin color. They were a white person and the other person was not, and they got passed up because that person they were the number 1 or 2 qualified individual in the state. That person ranked 170 something, but they got passed up for promotion based off of that one piece of things. And it's happening all over the place. You're seeing this now, especially with this whole Doge push. You're seeing a lot of people that weren't qualified to be in these jobs getting laid off, and they're upset that they're getting laid off because you shouldn't lay somebody off because they're unqualified for the job. Well, no, what? Yeah, you should. If you can't do the job or you're not doing a good job of your job, then
if you suck, we don't want you. That needs to be the standard.
That's a straightforward way of putting it. And it's good to see us get back to that and start to kind of reset the scales in terms of hiring.
It helps everything. Better job performance, higher productivity, and then overall company success. And like you said, Walmart was like, hey, yeah, this didn't work. It hurt us. Yeah. It just like you said, it's common sense. It makes sense.
I think Walmart like used to be, and even like McDonald's, they used to be places that, that was an acceptable job as in our culture. It wasn't the greatest job in the world, but it was a job. It was a job, and you were looked at and respected for having that. Now you walk through Walmart, and I can't tell if somebody's in there as an employee or if they're in there as as a homeless dude off the street. Like
or if they're there legally.
I don't know about that, but like it is. There's less pride as a whole, as in our nation. And I'm not saying that, I get pride comes before the fall. But we have no pride in our nation. We actually have, I think, the opposite of it. We put ourselves down, and having a job and having that American dream of buying your own home and starting a family and doing those things, that starts with a job, and that starts with a good hire. And you shouldn't be hiring somebody just based off of the fact that they meet a quota. You should be hiring somebody that's based and skilled enough to do the job, and earn that wage. And that's something that is exciting to see that Trump's done.
Yeah, and just like there is a continuing trend that, granted, has been going on for a long time, but I think more recently has started to be actually felt. Employees are drastically becoming unsatisfied in their jobs. So if you switch back to a merit-based platform, you're going to get, if I'm hired because I'm good at what I do and I'm valued and, I'm motivated because of that, knowing that my qualifications and my hard work are recognized, this is going to just naturally lead to higher job satisfaction and loyalty. Job turnover rates right now are insane. Exactly.
Don't even start me on job turnover rates. Our industry job turnover rate is like 90%. It's ridiculous. We hire over 100 people in the course of a year, and we still lose a majority of them. And a lot of it comes down to job satisfaction and just the type of candidate that we end up having to hire. We don't hire quite as many as some, but there is a large turnover rate in most industries across America.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see that happening, a lot of the older generation will just say, oh, it's kids these days. But when you go to a place, you start, and this will get me on a side tangent, I know, but when you go to a place and you start and you work there for 20 years, and you end at a certain level with your pay, or if you had left, go to another company and job hop your way up, you'll hit that level of pay much quicker than somebody that just stayed there for a long time. And this boom in economy that I think we're about to see from Trump is going to allow companies to value those individuals that have been there for a long time. Our generation knows that that's the formula to job hop, and go from job to job just to move your way up that corporate ladder. You watch a lot of the corporate individuals coming out of business schools and stuff like that. That's what they'll do. That's their career. CEOs, you track CEO movement. They are constantly moving from company to company, just taking the next best paycheck. I think this policy will start to implement a culture of staying with the same company that our grandfathers experienced. Your great grandfather worked in the same company for 50 years, and he had a great life with that company. I think you'll start to see that come back, not just people moving around. And a lot of those that were jumping around are jumping around and masking incompetence, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be there for 2 years, jump to the next place when they finally figure out that they're not able to do the job.
Yep.
And go from there. It's rampant in our federal government, and it's just as bad, I think, in the private sector as well.
Oh yeah, it just trickles down. I mean, we're going to see an increase in efficiency, and that's going to be a major boost of the whatever organization's general overall performance. I mean, we're going to see businesses focused on results, and so merit-based hiring allows we're going to see goals of performance-driven organizations where, success is measured by outcomes rather than, personal attributes or, whatever other sort of thing that the DEI stuff was pushing. And so, again, this is going to turn into success for, all these companies. It's going to keep a competitive advantage. Companies that hire based on merit are more likely to maintain a competitive edge because they're consistently staffed with talented individuals that are going to be driving their companies forward.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing is, like you had kind of hinted at, we're going to start seeing this is going to incentivize, excellence. Individuals are going to, want to improve their skills and work ethic. If they know that they're appreciated and valued, they're going to want, and if their achievements will be recognized and they know they'll be rewarded, this is just going to, it just makes everyone happy, employer, employee, and you're going to be successful, and it's going to lead to an overall culture of excellence that we haven't seen in, 50 years.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing this will do is a lot of these companies will get kickbacks from the federal government for reaching certain diversity quotas, and that cut from the government, you'll start to see that play out into if there's no incentive, that's the reason they're doing this, right? We have to see that there's money involved.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing this because they know they're not hiring the best people for the job. They know that this is the case. They're getting kickbacks from the government in that way. That's going to start to dry up, and you'll start to see better hiring practices all around, which is exciting to see.
Yeah. And with that said, that is the 10 best / controversial / whatever, things Trump has done so far. He's done a lot, and, honestly, it's just, it's mind boggling how much he's done. And so we wanted to put this out there to kind of, break down, what are 10 things that Trump has done, that are awesome and that are going to help push this this country forward.
Yeah.
And so, with that said, Trump is giving a joint address to Congress tonight at 9 p.m. We're going to try to get this episode up before then. We'll see how that goes. But regardless, if this comes out tomorrow, what are some things that we're going to expect and some things that we'll probably cover in future episodes or, on X as we cover it. We're going to cover it live. Trump said he's going to cover he wants to see a renewal of the American dream. That's basically the central theme of his whole address tonight. He wants to revitalize the American dream, emphasizing policies aimed at economic growth and national prosperity, which is, a lot of the things that we covered. Actually, some of the top things he's done actually are going to bolster national prosperity and economic growth. He's going to cover trade policies, government efficiency and budget cuts, tax policy, foreign policy updates. Probably going to talk about the Ukraine deal that they're going to get signed here. And immigration and border security. So, if you're going to watch it, those are kind of going to be the main topics of discussion. If any of that interests you, tune in. If not, follow the Watchmen's Post X account and we'll be covering it live. Also, there's going to be a Democratic response to it. Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan is going to deliver the Democrat response, focusing on some of their issues with Trump's policies. And then there's going to be a progressive rebuttal by Senator Bernie Sanders. He's going to provide a progressive rebuttal to, the policies Trump's doing. So if you just want to tune in for a laugh fest and just have a good time and be entertained, just tune in to watch Bernie Sanders make a fool out of himself. So
yeah.
But
so that's our 10. What's our plus one?
Shoot, I forget already.
Golf of America.
Oh, yes. Our extra bonus, Louder with Crowder, we're giving you a shout out here. They do a segment called 7+1. We're doing 10+1, renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. That's awesome. Pull out your phone, look up Google Maps, Apple Maps, scroll down to
incredible.
And it'll say Gulf of America. That's pretty freaking cool.
So,
with that said, thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Not sure what we're going to cover yet. We'll play it by ear. It's kind of hard when you do something like this because, something crazy could happen where I completely throw aside my planned episode and we cover some breaking news that just happened. So, we'll play it by ear. We'll try to give you a heads up via social media what we're going to be covering, but that could change because, something crazy, World War III could happen. And then it's like, we should probably talk about that. So, thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you next time. Like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, X, Rumble, YouTube, because I'm not thinking we'll be on YouTube very long. Some of these episodes are going to get us demonetized for sure and possibly banned, but who cares? We're in for it. That's what we want to do. So see you next time.